there's something you really wanted to do, to start a new creative project or exercising, whatever it is, and you started moaning about it, about how you don't have the motivation, and someone told you, don't worry about it, I will do it for you, and I'll start tomorrow. Would you believe them? Obviously not. Well, it's exactly the same way with the future versions of ourselves. They're kind of like a separate person who doesn't owe us anything. Which means it doesn't count if you say, I'll do it tomorrow, because first of all, what the future you doesn't count for the present you, and you can never live up to it because it doesn't exist. And second of all, why would they do anything for you? If you're so certain the future will have your back, why? If you have no track record of doing something in the present, then why would the future you engage in it anyway? Putting all of your hopes in the future is illogical and risky and often ends in failure. In order for the future to do something for you, it has to trust you first. Treat it as a filthy rich investor. I mean, if it's only a fantasy anyway, then it might as well be successful and rich, right? I'm not saying I don't do this. Using the I'll do it tomorrow option, it's a universal human condition to postpone things and put pressure on the future instead of on the present. It's kind of like this trash cupboard you have where you put things you don't know what to do with. You don't want to get rid of them, but you also don't know what to do with them, or you don't want to deal with them now, so you just put them in there hoping that they will deal with themselves so that someday you know what to do with them. But it doesn't work that way. We are programmed to compartmentalize ourselves. All of our faults and failures, we put them in the past because it means we won't have to deal with them again. And all of our hopes and expectations, well, we put them in the future, in the front, so that we have a nice, though distorted view. Then we can just sit back and forgive and forget and anticipate. And you know what? Sometimes it's fine. Some things are not meant to be completed. Maybe you want to run a marathon, but it is not something that you will regret if you don't do. Maybe you just don't care about it enough. Similarly, maybe you're just not meant to write this novel. Maybe it's not something essential to you. Life is about differentiating between the things that are worth shaking up the present selves and just doing them, and those who are not. You can't do it all, and that list of all the things you want to do will never be completed in full. But regardless of that, there are some things you know you want to do, even just so you know you've done them. You cannot rely on any future version of you or the world or your circumstances or abilities. Measuring yourself against the future usually ends up in disappointment anyway, because even if you do all of those things that you wanted to do, it will usually be less glamorous and more strenuous than how you imagined it to look like. It doesn't make it any less fulfilling after you do it, but the work itself is often more mundane, ordinary. And sometimes it really isn't worth imagining how something will turn out, how grand it will feel, because then we don't appreciate it enough when it actually happens. It's also about the attention we pay to certain versions of ourselves or certain moments of ourselves. I think we tend to pay too much regard towards the future versions of ourselves who don't exist yet. But really, if we don't pay enough attention to the present ones, we'll never truly see the future us because they are created by the present us. If you complete Project X or not, if you take job A instead of B, it will affect how your life will turn out and who you will become. Your future self does grow out of the present one, and living solely for the future doesn't give enough space for the present one to develop, and therefore you're disabling the future from achieving its full potential. And that's why I always try to do things that don't work only towards the future. For example, when I record those videos, or when I write, or when I try to maintain certain habits, I work towards the future, and that is great, it is, but I also make sure to spend time on the present me every single day, to do things that might not affect me in the future. I try to do things that assert that the present me matters too, even if it evaporates instantly. My version of it is primarily, among other things, reading books. There are many, many reasons why I read books. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And of course, books also affect your future because they make you grow and develop and change perspective, but it's not explicit. The most direct goal of reading is the moment of it, the experience of it. And that's why I make sure I do it every day. Also because I love it. It doesn't have to be reading, it can be anything as long as its main goal is to serve not the future, but the present. If it serves the future, great, but it should be a byproduct. Because if I spent the entirety of every day working towards the future, living towards the future, and I never pay any regard to the present. Do I ever really live? If I live only for the future, then I am nowhere, because I'm not in the present, obviously, but I'm also not in the future because it doesn't exist. I'm in this in-between space, which is valuable, but you can't live like this 100% of the time. Believe me, I learned the hard way. Carpe diem, though it may seem overly escapist or careless, is the only thing that ensures we don't get lost in our own time frame, and that we learn to live with ourselves as we are right now. Because if we live only according to who we want to be in the future, then we'll never truly get to know ourselves, who we really are. And if we don't know ourselves, we have a distorted view of what we want and what we need, and those can be different things. We might strive for the wrong things and make plenty of unnecessary mistakes. Carpe diem means in Latin, seize the day. And what it mainly represents is, to paraphrase, enjoy today while you still can. It also means, as I read it, this day, today, is the only thing you have, so seize it before it becomes tomorrow. Because when it does become tomorrow, then you've got another day to seize, and another, and another, and another. Then you are so far behind, the present itself becomes impossible to reach. So seize it while you can, because nothing else exists, including you.